Hello there, everyone, and welcome to Live at 5. Another round. Today's Tuesday. I'm your host, Raphael Leban. Thanks for joining. We hope you're having a wonderful day on a Tuesday. Is Tuesday hump day, or that's Wednesday, right? What's the Wednesday is the hump day of the week. Jewishly, of course, Tuesday is the hump day of the week because we are 3 days from Shabbos and 3 days till Shabbos. So Jewishly, we're right in the middle of the week here. As Tuesday's rolling into Wednesday, we're gonna be downhill into the following Shabbos. And I hope your week's going well. I had a lovely Mazel Tov to share to some dear friends, many of them. Akiva and Aviva Balsam had a little girl, a granddaughter born to Ellie and Zussman, Aviva's parents. Ellie and Lola Zussman are Mazel Tov to you guys and to the whole family, because it's a big Denver family. The Zussmans have had a beautiful business in Denver, Colorado, actually for 100 years, Acme Bag and Burlap, and so there are lots of people to receive that Mazel Tov, the very nice thing. Today we're going to continue some of the topics we've been speaking about earlier in the week. We got Purim coming up, the Fast of Esther, all kinds of great stuff, and we're going to go there. Before we do, I just wanted to also make mention of the wonderful guests that we had today. We had a whole delegation from Dallas, actually. A rabbinic delegation from Dallas came to Denver today and visited our organization amongst a handful of others, checking out, best practices in community work. Here we are. The Jewish Experience has been working in the community for many years, many decades, and some of these folks are friends and colleagues for decades, doing great work in Dallas. I was at one point in the conversation, my dear friend Rabbi Bensi Epstein from Dallas, he actually said that their energies and efforts for the last 25 or so, almost 30 years, have spawned 10 different congregations in Dallas. Can you imagine that? What an unbelievable legacy that is. And they've really, really grown a community that's grown and has grown again. And they came to Denver to check out what's going on here in the Jewish community of Denver and see what kind of inspiration they could bring back to Dallas. And it was really wonderful to see them. And we took, I haven't seen the pictures yet, but we took a whole picture, all of us together with our masks on, of course, lined up just so we could, we could mark their visit. And we've been down to Dallas to visit them, and it's nice to have them back up here. So welcome. I think they, when somebody comes, you give them a bracha, a blessing. Bruchim haboim. We say that blessed are you've come. Blessed may your visit be successful and be blessed. And when they go, we say tzeschem l'sholom, go in peace, go back home. And when people are traveling today, that's what I'm thinking. We want a peaceful journey. We want traveling in peace. Come in peace. A lot of these visits would be done by Zoom, right? You'd say, Rabbi, what are you doing getting on a plane for? Don't you have a computer? What's the matter? Just do a Zoom meeting. But there's just nothing like sitting and seeing people in person. I really think it's not the same. As much as I love Zoom, but being together with people in person is really something magical and special. The warmth, the reality of sitting in the same space. I'm looking forward to doing that again. I just found out I have a dear friend who here in Denver, Pam Solomon, who has a 100% success rate getting vaccines for people who are struggling to find an opportunity. So if you or anyone is trying to get a vaccine, qualifies, and just can't quite work out the logistics, so this dear friend has out of the kindness of her heart has figured out this, all the systems. She knows how to pound the pavement, and she has been able to get lots and lots and lots of people vaccines. So if you'd like to get in touch with her and like some help with getting a vaccine and you need one, please let me know. I'd be happy to put you in touch, and I'm sure she'd be happy to help. Just today, my mom texted me and said she got me a vaccine. I got an appointment for right before Purim. I'm coming. And then she said, and somebody else just got me a vaccine in New York, and I'm in New York anyway. This is mom who flies back and forth, and she's gonna, in the end, get the New York version. But I just think that's an important resource. I don't want people to feel stuck and you can't get it and you want to know. So this friend has really been helpful, and it's just not the only such kind-hearted person that I've heard has been working on that. Several other people have told me that that they know of individuals who are making it their business to pound the pavement on behalf of others and make sure that anybody who is trying to get a vaccine and just hasn't quite figured out the system is able to get one. Very nice thing. Okay, let's take a look at the our Megillas Esther. I've got my little handy pocket Megillah. This is not a real scroll of Esther. This is just of course, a nice picture version, which I guess that guy has a green jacket on, and so he looks like my green screen thinks that he's got a hole, cut a hole in him. Of course, the real way to hear the story of the Megillah on Purim is to hear it read from a beautiful kosher scroll. It's actually handwritten and it's rolled out in a long scroll shape, not like a booklet. But this one is very good for use for Live at 5. And if anyone wants to sponsor a real kosher one, you can speak to me after the show. The parak, the chapter that we're going to be looking at today, I want to look at 2 chapters, 5 and 6. Chapters 5 and 6 is what we're up to. And if you recall what's been happening up to now, as we're going through the narrative of the story, we have been sort of watching as the clouds over the horizon are gathering, and it was in the previous chapter that Haman decreed along with the king Achashverosh, they made their fateful decree of total annihilation for the Jewish people in 11 months' time in the month of Adar, and Mordechai tore his clothing, and he gave Esther instructions to go in to the king, interrupt him if necessary, and let him know that you are a Jew who is technically decreed to be annihilated by the king's own hand, by his own decree. So Esther goes in and cleverly goes about her plan to save the Jewish people. So what does she do? She invites the king to a party. Okay, she invites the king to a party. Now that doesn't sound like the solution to all of our problems, but it's the direction that we needed to go. She said, the king was surprised that she came in because, as we mentioned, the law of the land was that you can't go uninvited to the king, and she did. So the king was rather surprised, but it was Esther, his queen, so he honored her request, and he certainly didn't have her executed. Instead, he agreed to join her at the party. Now, she said, I want to have just a party with you and Haman. So the two of you are invited to this special party. The king didn't quite know what's going on, but he agreed. Now, in chapter 5, the story is told of Haman's reaction to getting invited to a party with the king and queen. Can you imagine that, here was a very egotistical minister. The whole world revolved around him, and he got invited to a party with the king and the queen and him, just the three of them. I mean, how intimate, how unbelievable was that? He was over the moon. He thought, of course, that's so appropriate. He's the most respected minister the king has, most important advisor. And he walks out of the palace where he's just gotten his invitation to this party, and he bumps right into Mordechai, who's taken up his post at the palace gates. And Mordechai, as usual, is the only individual in the kingdom that does not bow down to Haman when he walks by. And this infuriates him. It makes him so angry. And this is really the ultimate example of ego and what ego is really about. I have this wonderful book. Actually, I'm just going to grab it even. It's right there in the studio. This wonderful book is by a colleague, a friend, David Lieberman, Dr. David Lieberman, PhD, and it's a wonderful, wonderful book about conflict and avoiding conflict. And we're going to be using it in this year, very, very leaning on it very heavily for this year's Clean Speech, Colorado, Volume 3 campaign. Now, in here, I just happened to notice he actually refers in this book on conflict. It's not about Judaism, it's not about the holidays, it's not about Purim, but when he's talking about ego, he actually quotes right on page 12, Megillah chapter, the what we're reading, chapter 5. And he talks about a person who suffers from low self-esteem and therefore is very and simultaneously is very egocentric. Those two things go hand in hand. And he says in the Megillah, we're introduced to the wicked Haman. His behavior exemplifies the egocentric mindset. Haman had money, power, and prestige, yet became enraged when a single person, Mordecai, failed to show him respect. It's a fabulous additional level of way to read the story here. That not only is Haman to be remembered as the great enemy of the Jewish people that he was, and every time we hear his name, we tap on, we bang our on our tables, we sound our groggers in order to blot out his name. But he's additionally, it's a lesson for us, the incredible pitfalls of an overactive ego. Person who is egocentric is a person who with low self-esteem, who doesn't feel great respect for himself and relies on others to show him the respect that he craves. When everything is going right, but one person fails to show him respect, Mordecai is the only one in the whole kingdom that's not bowing down to him, and it makes him incensed. He becomes enraged. He can't deal with it. Well, why should he bother? He's got every other member of the kingdom that bows down to him. He's got everything else going right, and he just got invited to a private party with the king and the queen. Why should he be bothered? Why does he care? But you see that if someone is gonna fail to show him the respect that he craves, it sends him reeling, angry. Now, so what is his response? What does he do? In the story, he goes back and he complains to all his family members, and they say, you know what you should do? Enough is enough. This whole decree to destroy the Jewish people was really only an elaborate scheme to get rid of Mordecai. And he's still not working. You still have problems with him. Just cut to the chase. Build this enormous gallows, 50 cubits high, and you'll just have him hung. Just put Mordecai up hang him from the gallows and finished. End of your story, end of your problems. And that's what Haman decides to do. And he actually builds the gallows. Okay, he builds the gallows, and he's ready. Now, that's the events of chapter 5. In chapter 6, the party actually takes place, and the king is there, and Esther's there, and one second, I'm sorry. That's chapter 7. Chapter 6, before the party, there's one more important incident which I want to describe, and that is this. And with this, we'll see one of the main themes of Purim emerges very beautifully in chapter 6. So Haman has built this gallows, and he wants to go hang Mordecai on it. And he's going to go ask the king to do so. He does so immediately. In fact, it's very late at night, and the king would normally be asleep. It just so happens that the king was unable to sleep that night. He was trying to sleep, couldn't sleep. So he has one of his servants bring the royal chronicles, the diary of the king, and read from the royal chronicles. And he reads, and what does he find out? It turns out that the page opens, and the diary opens right up to the story many years prior of Mordecai having saved the king's life. Mordecai overheard the plot of the palace guard's Bigsan and Seresh who wanted to kill the king. Mordecai told Esther. Esther told the king. The king saved himself, protected himself from his palace guards, had them executed instead of allowing them to kill him, and wrote down in the royal diary that he owed a debt of gratitude to Mordecai. So the king is awake and is wondering if anything was ever done as a very appropriate gesture of royal gratitude to Mordecai for having foiled the plot and saved the king's life. Nothing yet was done. So right at that very moment, can you imagine? Right at that moment, that's what the king is thinking. And Haman walks in. And Haman is ready to ask the king to execute Mordecai. And before he can get the words out of his mouth, the king says, Haman, glad that you're here. I got a question for you. What do you think we should do for someone in the kingdom? Very, very special, very, very important. And we want to show them great honor. And of course, Haman, the ultimate egotist, thinks, who else could the king possibly be talking about but me? He's the one. I'm the one that's invited to the private party with him and the queen. It's got to be me, right? So he thinks of what he would love to have done for himself. He says to the king, you know what? I'd like to suggest, take this special person and put them on the king's horse and dress this person up in the king's royal robe and crown, and have that person led through the city for all to see. And the king says, that's a great idea, Haman. Now, please go do exactly that. You please carry out your suggestion for Mordecai. So this is the absolute opposite of everything that Haman came to the king about. He came in, think about it, he came in to get the king's permission to hang Mordecai and kill him on the gallows he just built. And instead he walks out with the divine commandment to do everything, show the highest honor to that very same Mordecai. He's going to have to do it. He's going to be the one down on the ground leading the king's horse, with Mordecai sitting on the horse in the king's royal robes and crown, exactly like he was dreaming to do. Couldn't be anything more upside down from Haman's intent. And that here we see one of the main themes of the holiday, of the story, and of the whole concept that a very, very deep Jewish idea. The verse later says "Vaynafachu," that everything was turned upside down. Eventually, on that very gallows that Haman made to hang Mordecai, Haman himself will be the one that'll be hung at the end. Everything couldn't be more overturned. Instead of the Jews being destroyed, the Jews will instead be victorious. Instead of Mordecai being executed, Mordecai will be promoted. Instead of Haman being promoted, Mordecai will be executed. It's all a story of flip-flop, of everything being overturned, and the exact opposite happening. That's really the theme as well. That's the concept, the deeper concept behind laughter. Laughter is a concept where we are expecting one thing, and at the very last minute we get something else, and everything is turned around on us. And that's what creates laughter, and laughter is a very essential theme of Purim. It's a little bit like the phrase, you want to have the last laugh, The punchline is always at the end, right? I mean, there's no when you get to the punchline, there's no more joke. The joke doesn't go on for a few more minutes after the punchline. The punchline is the end, right? So that when you're laughing is you see what happens in the end. And so in a sense, Purim is the end. It's the end. It's the last laugh, if you will. It's the Jewish people who've come to an end of an exile. And even though they looked like they were headed for doomsday, for annihilation and for destruction, they had the last laugh. The Jewish people had the last laugh, and everything was flipped around, and instead they were saved. The holiday of Purim is essentially the last holiday of the year, because the first holiday of the year is Passover. Right? It's in month number 1, and it's the birth of the Jewish people, and that's the beginning of all the holiday season. So that's the beginning of the year for holidays. And the last one is in the 12th month of the year, which is Adar, and that's the holiday of Purim. It's the final holiday of a year of holidays. I actually had I have a friend who used to be a colleague of ours, and his tradition in his family, not from a very long time ago, but from a mentor of his, Rabbi Shimshon Pinchas of blessed memory in Israel. So what he does at his Purim meal, at his Purim party, is he actually goes through a mini year of Jewish holidays. They actually have a glass of wine, and they talk about each holiday of the Jewish year in a row, one at a time. starting with Passover, and then they have Lag BaOmer, and then they have Shavuos, and then Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Shemini Atzeres, Hanukkah, and then Purim. Now, that's a lot of glasses of wine if you were counting, and it's quite a Purim party, let me tell you. But the idea is that we can kind of celebrate at Purim a culmination of sorts. It's the last of the holidays. And it's the last laugh. It's almost like a way of tapping into and celebrating the idea of the ultimate conclusion of Jewish history. The fact that we're going to get to the end of the story, and even though things look bleak and it doesn't look like the task is being accomplished, at the end, the Jewish people will have the last laugh for the world, and that goodness will triumph, and that godliness will be respected for what it should be, and that all of the hard work and self-sacrifice of the Jewish people throughout the ages will ultimately be seen for what it is, as the valuable role model for humanity. So that really is all encapsulated in the concept of Purim, and in this, and here's where we see that it's all turning around. Now the story starts to move along very quickly, because right after that narrative where Haman is forced to parade Mordecai on the horse through the city, he goes right home. He starts complaining to his family, and they have one thing to say, and they have to say, "Uh-oh, if things are starting to go south for you in a conflict with the Jews, you're in bad shape." And before they can even finish saying that, the royal guards come and say, "Okay, Haman, time for the party." And they take him back to the party. And that's the end of chapter 6. Now we know at that party, ultimately, is where he will be shown up as the enemy of the Jewish people and the enemy of the queen. And that's where the story will come to culmination, and in terms of Haman, and where the king will recognize that he's got it in to destroy the people of his queen, and so he'll be the one hung by the gallows as opposed to Mordecai. Now, these, again, party after party after party, what you really see is that there's a big theme of parties in the Megillah. And one of the 4 mitzvahs that we have in Purim, one of the 4 commandments, 4 ways of celebrating, is to make a party, actually. During the day, not the nighttime, not Thursday night, but Friday day, sometime during the day, we're gonna make a Purim Seudah. The word Seudah means a festive meal, like a party. It could be any time of day, really. In fact, even though on a normal Purim we might make it later in the day, like an early dinner or a late lunch, this year, because Purim is followed immediately by Shabbos, out of deference to Shabbos, we'll make it earlier in the day. Some will make it at breakfast time. We're calling it for we're gonna have a special bagel meal, right? Right early in the morning, and that'll be our Purim Seudah. So maybe it'll have to be Bloody Marys, mimosas, fuzzy navels. I don't know. Maybe it'll just be wine. We're just going to go right for it. And the eating and drinking, our sages say, is not just classic Jewish holiday celebration, but it's something specific to Purim is happening here. The threat against the Jewish people was to destroy them, that they should all be killed, God forbid. And to some degree, when the just celebration of a salvation from that threat would be to eat and drink, because my very physical being is threatened. When I'm saved, my very physical being is going to celebrate. That's the way we look at it. Your life is on the line. You have to celebrate with a meal, because the meal is, that feeds you and nourishes your life. And so we even perhaps more so than with any holiday or with other holidays, just in general, that we eat and drink, we have a special eating and drinking on Purim. And as we've mentioned before, the part of the celebration is drinking wine, and all of these are considered to be wine parties. The story of the Megillah began with one, and it has one in this chapter, and eventually it'll get there when Esther goes to save the Jewish people. The way that she does that is by inviting the king to have to this glass of wine, and the wine becomes a way of bringing about the solution. So So we drink wine. And now I've mentioned this last week, but of intoxicating drinks, wine is the preference in Purim. People could drink other things, but wine is preferable because the variety of reasons why we generally go to wine as a special drink to sanctify and to elevate a moment. But one of the other reasons is that the Hebrew word for wine, which is yayin, is spelled yud nun in Hebrew, and the numerical value of the word in Hebrew is 70. So 70 is figures prominently in the story, the number 70. It was the story is based on the idea that there was a prophecy that the Jewish people would be in Persian exile before returning to Israel to rebuild the temple for 70 years. So that's the sort of the underlying preface of the story. And the Talmud says that the numerical value of 70 is also the same for the word sod. And sod, which means secret, has the same numerical value as the word for wine. And since it has that numerical value, the same one, so then there's a connection to it. And the connection, one could say, is, and as the Talmud explains, is nichnas yain yatsa sod, which is when the wine goes in, the secrets come out, right? Is that we tend to be more willing to share what we would otherwise keep inside. It's a kind of it's a way of pushing past our normal inhibitions. Now, sometimes we think that inhibitions, losing inhibitions might be a bad idea. So that if you have something that you're trying to, keep inside that you don't want out, so then you should be inhibited about it. And if you have something very beautiful inside, then maybe having a glass of wine that would allow you to bring it out would actually be a positive. And we are of the opinion that a life well lived is a life in which we develop a rich inner reality, a spiritual beauty, a greatness that is beautiful, that is positive, and that if we would be allowed, if we would be able to let our guard down a little bit and show it off a little bit more, that would be a positive. And so in this case, the secret that's coming out by drinking a little wine is we're getting to a greater, deeper reality, both from within and from without. And with that, in part, that means the recognition that all of the ideas, the lessons, the expectations that we see in the Megillah are really part of the greater reality in which we live. And here particularly, I'm referring to the flip-flop idea, because if a person, sometimes you look out into the state of society, you read the news. I don't recommend too much, and a person could become depressed, and you could think there's no hope. Everything's going in the wrong direction, and I don't see any solutions on the horizon. And you know what? That's not dissimilar to the Purim story. They didn't know exactly where the solutions were going to come from, and things looked as grim as could possibly be. But what happens is there's a last laugh. Everything is flipped upside down, and that's the way that we get to the final resolution. And we should expect that. This is a holiday that Jewish people have been celebrating for over 2,000 years, and we live this reality through from generation to generation. Things look grim, and somehow the Jewish people survive. You'd think that was it. This is the last. Things could not get any worse, could not get any darker, could get any more brutal. Can you imagine how things looked for European Jewry in the 40s in the midst of World War II and the Holocaust? Did they think there was a future? And yet, somehow things managed to turn around. Somehow, we say somehow. We say we've got a special somehow up in heaven who is in charge of taking care of those things for us. And so the holiday is really much more global. It's not just about one day in the midst of the month of Adar. It's fine trying to drink until we can unpack a beautiful inner reality, which is that ultimately all of those good things that we're looking forward to and that we're trying to bring to the world will come to fruition. That's our prayer. That's our holiday. That's our joy. Have a glass of wine. We're looking forward to celebrating Purim. It's Thursday night and Friday of this week. And I hope that you are getting ready. We just last announcements. If you are interested, if you need assistance with any of the different mitzvahs of the day, please let us know. We can be in touch and recommend places where you might hear the Megillah being read in person. If you'd like to participate in the mitzvah of the special tzedakah we give on Purim, I'm happy to help you with that. And you can go onto the Jewish Experiences website and our donate page and make a gift there. And there's a place to earmark it and just check off Purim specific tzedakah. It's one of the check boxes there. And if you'd like to, we're gonna, God willing, be together tomorrow. Now, I hope we're gonna be together tomorrow for another day of 5 Live at 5. But I have another obligation which may preclude us. I'm not sure. So I'm just hoping to see you tomorrow. But we will see what happens. And worst case scenario, if not, then have a wonderful Purim, and I will see you next week on Live at 5. Have a healthy day and a holy day, and thanks for joining us.